Some stories begin with fireworks, but mine began with rain. It was one of those sudden storms that sweep through the city without warning. I had just finished work at the library, carrying a stack of books in my bag, when my umbrella decided to give up on me. A strong gust of wind flipped it inside out, leaving me drenched in seconds. Frustrated, I scanned the street and spotted a little cafe glowing warmly across the road. Without thinking twice, I dashed through the puddles and pushed open the door. The bell above it chimed, and instantly I was wrapped in the comforting scent of coffee and pastries. As I stood there brushing water from my glasses, I heard a soft chuckle. Looking up, I saw him. He was seated by the window with a book in his hand and a half-empty mug in front of him. His dark hair was damp, and his jacket was dotted with raindrops, but he looked perfectly at ease, as if storms were nothing new to him. Our eyes met. He smiled, small, shy, but warm enough to melt through the cold clinging to me. I quickly turned to find a seat, but the image of his smile lingered. Moments later, I heard the barista call, "Caramel latte for James." He rushed to collect it, and as he walked back, he caught me looking again. This time, instead of pretending not to notice, he spoke. "Rough weather, huh?" His voice was low, gentle. "Yeah," I laughed awkwardly. My umbrella didn't make it. "Mine either," he said with a grin. "Guess the storm wins today." And just like that, a simple exchange pulled me into conversation with him. We talked about the rain, about books, about how the city never seemed prepared for anything. He told me he was a photographer, the kind who loved capturing small, unnoticed moments of life. "Beauty hides in plain sight," he said. "Most people rush past it, but if you stop, it's everywhere." The way he said it stayed with me. Maybe because I believed it too. Maybe because it felt like, for the first time in a long time, someone else understood. When the storm finally softened into a drizzle, I knew it was time to leave. We stood near the door, neither of us eager to part. "It was nice talking to you," I said. "You too," he replied, then paused. "Maybe we'll meet again. This city's smaller than it looks." I smiled, though I didn't really believe him. But still, I carried his words and his smile with me all the way home. And that was the beginning. For days after that rainy afternoon, I found myself thinking about James more often than I cared to admit. His smile, his voice, the way he spoke about hidden beauty as though it were the simplest truth in the world. I told myself it was silly. We were strangers after all. But the thought of him lingered, like a song I couldn't get out of my head. Then fate played its hand. It was a Saturday morning when I decided to take a walk in the park near my apartment. The air was cool, washed clean by last night's drizzle. Birds darted from tree to tree, and the pond shimmered with gentle ripples. It was my little escape, a quiet place where I could read in peace. And that's where I saw him again. James. He was crouched by the water's edge, camera in hand, completely absorbed in capturing a dragonfly resting on a lily pad. For a moment, I just watched him, struck by the calm intensity in his expression. Then he turned, and when his eyes met mine, his whole face lit up. "Hey," he said, standing and slinging the camera strap around his neck. "We meet again." I laughed, half in disbelief. I guess the city really is small. We fell into step together, strolling through the park as though it was the most natural thing in the world. He showed me some of the photos he'd taken that morning. Dew on the grass, sunlight filtering through branches, children chasing kites. Each image was alive, bursting with details I might have missed on my own. "Do you always come here?" he asked. "Sometimes," I admitted. "It's where I come to breathe." "Same," he smiled. "Maybe that's why we found each other here." We talked for hours. He told me about his travels, the small towns he'd visited with nothing but a backpack and his camera. I shared my love for books, my quiet dream of writing one someday, even my fear of being too ordinary to matter. He listened intently, then said something that stopped me in my tracks. "You don't have to be extraordinary to matter. Just being yourself can change someone's world." He gave me a soft smile. "Like you're doing to mine right now." No one had ever said anything like that to me before. His words sank deep, filling a space I hadn't even realized was empty. By the time the sun dipped low and painted the sky pink, we were still talking. When we finally parted, it wasn't with vague hopes like before. This time we exchanged numbers. As I walked home, clutching my phone a little tighter, I knew it wasn't chance anymore. Something real was beginning to grow. The days that followed felt like a dream. James and I began meeting often, sometimes at the park, sometimes at the little cafe where we first spoke. Each time our conversations grew deeper, stretching from casual chatter to secrets we rarely shared with others. His laughter became a sound I looked forward to, and his presence felt like sunlight breaking through a cloudy sky. But love stories are never without obstacles. James was a photographer with a restless spirit. His work often required him to travel, sometimes just for a day or two, sometimes for weeks. One evening, as we sat by the cafe window watching the rain, he told me he had been offered a big assignment overseas. A magazine wanted him to document street life in Europe. It was an incredible opportunity. I'd be gone for 3 months, he said quietly, his fingers tracing circles on his coffee mug. I want to take it, but I don't want to lose what we've started. My heart clenched. I was proud of him, but fear crept in. 3 months felt like a lifetime when we had only just begun. What if distance cooled the warmth between us? What if he returned and everything was different? You should go, I said, forcing a smile. This is your dream. He looked at me carefully. Are you sure? I don't want to hold you back, I whispered, though inside I longed to ask him to stay. And so he left. At first we spoke often, messages in the morning, video calls at night. He sent me photos from cobbled streets and sunlit squares, each image carrying a piece of his journey. I shared stories of my quiet days at the library, of books that reminded me of him, of the park that now felt emptier without his laughter. But slowly, the distance began to weigh on us. Calls grew shorter. Sometimes he was too tired. Sometimes I was too busy. There were days when his silence stretched longer than I could bear. Doubt whispered in my ear. Maybe he was slipping away. Maybe I had meant less to him than he had to me. One evening, after waiting hours for his promised call, I found myself staring at my phone, tears blurring the screen. I missed him so much it ached. And for the first time, I wondered if love born from chance could survive the test of distance. It was our first real challenge, and I didn't know if we were strong enough to overcome it. The weeks dragged on like heavy shadows. At first, I told myself that distance was temporary, that patience was love's truest test. But as the days stretched longer, the silence between us grew louder. Messages that once overflowed with warmth became short replies. Hurried words between his assignments. Calls that used to stretch into the night now ended after a few rushed minutes. I tried to understand. He was chasing his dream, capturing the world through his lens. But the truth was, I felt left behind. Each morning, I woke to the same quiet library, the same books waiting to be shelved, the same streets we used to walk together. Meanwhile, he was out there, in cities I had never seen, meeting people I would never know. One evening, I poured myself a cup of tea and opened my phone. His latest photo had gone viral, a street musician in Paris, playing under the glow of lamplight. The comments praised his talent, his eye for beauty, his gift for telling stories through images. I should have felt proud. Instead, I felt a sharp ache in my chest. The world was seeing sides of him I was no longer part of. That night, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts spiraled with questions I didn't want to face. What if I was just a passing chapter in his story? What if, while he was out there finding new places and new faces, I became nothing more than a memory? When he finally called a few days later, I tried to sound cheerful. "How's Paris?" I asked. "Amazing," he said, his voice tired but alive with excitement. "You'd love it here. The light, the people, it's like every corner has a story." I smiled weakly, but my silence must have lingered because he asked, "Are you okay?" For a moment, the truth sat heavy on my tongue. I wanted to tell him I wasn't okay, that I missed him so much it hurt, that I was scared I was losing him. But fear held me back. I didn't want to be the reason he felt torn between love and his dream. "I'm fine," I whispered instead. But I wasn't. After we hung up, I sat in the dark, clutching my phone to my chest. Love, I realized, isn't just about smiles and warm afternoons. It's also about longing, about silence, about holding on even when every part of you is afraid of letting go. And in that moment, I wasn't sure if I was strong enough. The distance almost broke me. There were nights when loneliness felt heavier than the walls around me. Nights when I questioned whether love could survive across oceans and time zones. But just when I thought I couldn't bear it any longer, James surprised me. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon. I was shelving books at the library when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, and there he was. James. Standing there, camera bag slung over his shoulder, his hair a little longer, his eyes tired but shining. For a moment, I couldn't move. I thought I was dreaming. "Hi," he said softly, as if afraid the moment might shatter. I dropped the book in my hand and ran to him. He caught me, his arms wrapping tightly around me, grounding me in a way no phone call ever could. I buried my face against his shoulder, tears spilling before I could stop them. "You're here," I whispered. "I couldn't stay away any longer," he murmured. "The photos, the cities, the work, none of it meant anything without you." I realized I wasn't just chasing beauty out there. I'd already found it in you. His words undid me. All the fear, all the doubts I had carried for months melted away in that instant. We spent the evening walking through the park where we had once met again. The pond shimmered in the twilight, and the same willow trees swayed gently in the breeze. He told me about his travels, the moments that had thrilled him, the nights he had lain awake missing me. I told him about the quiet ache of waiting, about how his absence had forced me to understand the depth of what I felt. Distance was hard, I admitted, but it made me see something clearly. I don't just like you, James. I love you. And I don't want to live in a world where you're only half here. He took my hands, his eyes steady on mine. I love you too. More than the places I've seen, more than the photos I've taken. I want you in every frame of my life. Under the fading light, he kissed me. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It was certain, like a promise. From that day on, everything changed. James still traveled, but we made space for each other, weaving our lives together through trust and love. Distance no longer felt like a threat, but a reminder of how strong we had become. And so our story, born from a storm, tested by distance, strengthened by love, found its rhythm. Not perfect, not always easy, but ours. And that, I realized, was the most beautiful story of all.